The father gave the family business to my lazy brother instead of me. A month later, he almost killed a customer with an allergy, and now my father is begging me to come back and fix everything. Just over a month ago, I, at 28 years old, threw a retirement party for my father. He was stepping down from his position as the manager of our family restaurant, which he had been running for most of his life. Now he is 62, and he told us that he was too tired and wanted to pass the business on to the next generation. I naively assumed that he meant me, because I had dedicated the last 5 years of my life to this restaurant. My family owns a chain of Italian restaurants, and we also have 2 other establishments in the city. One is managed by my uncle, and the other by his daughter. However, our restaurant is the most popular, and my father is its sole owner. By the way, my uncle is not my father's biological brother, for context. It all started when my grandfather opened the first restaurant, and that's where the entire business began. Our restaurant is that very first establishment that my grandfather opened with my grandmother and managed for many years until my father inherited it. Then the business expanded, and we opened 2 new restaurants in other parts of the city. That's when my uncle got involved. He quit his job and started managing one of the new restaurants. When we opened the second one, his daughter became its manager. This way, the business always remained in the family. When my father announced his retirement a few weeks before the party, I was sure that he would hand over the management to me. My uncle couldn't claim this business because he was roughly my father's age, maybe a couple of years younger, and he was planning to retire in a couple of years. His daughter had only managed the new restaurant for 2 years, which is much less than my experience. I had been working in the family business for the last 5 years, starting at 23. I left my corporate job to work with my father because I hoped to inherit the family business and take it to a new level of success. I considered myself the most logical candidate for this role. My uncle was soon to retire, my cousin was too inexperienced, and it was just me. My father never explicitly said that he would hand over the business to me, and that was my mistake. I didn't ask for any guarantees, we didn't formalize anything officially. I just took it for granted that I would become the new manager. However, on the day of his farewell party, he threw me a curveball. He announced that he was handing over the business to my spoiled younger brother. I have 2 brothers, an older one and a younger one. The older one, Charles, is 34 and has never been interested in the restaurant business, he chose medicine. He is a surgeon. The younger one, Derek, is 26 and is not interested in anything and does nothing all day. He is a good-for-nothing slacker, and no one in the family likes him. I don't care that he does nothing and hasn't succeeded in anything, but his attitude is a problem. He hasn't achieved anything in life, but he behaves as if he deserves the best of everything. Our parents are primarily to blame for this. Whenever I or Charles try to reason with my younger brother, they immediately stop us, saying that he needs support so that he finally finds his calling and doesn't turn into a parasite who will live off his parents for the rest of his life. A few years ago, he graduated from college, and since then, he has been fired from at least 5 jobs. He never stayed long because of his terrible character. I don't know where he gets such self-confidence, but he behaves as if he is on the same level as God, and no one has the right to criticize him. We have to put up with it because he is family, but in real life, no one will tolerate such behavior, let alone his employers. So, it's no surprise that he gets fired from every new job after a couple of months. He has no special skills, and his previous jobs were arranged through my father's connections. He still can't do anything on his own, he is just a huge problem but doesn't even realize it. For the past 2 years, since he was fired from his last job, he has just been sitting at home, living off his parents. The worst part is that he doesn't even feel ashamed or embarrassed, and that is incredibly irritating because my parents do nothing about it and only indulge him. This is especially unfair because my parents constantly pushed me and Charles to succeed. I don't want to sound ungrateful, and we are both well established in life, but it's still unpleasant to see how lenient they are with Derek. In short, he is a real spoiled brat, and I can't stand him. When we were children, we were good friends, but everything changed in high school, and now I absolutely do not get along with Derek. Moreover, he has no experience in business and has no idea how things work around here. So, it was a shock to everyone when my father announced that he was handing over the business to him. My father announced his retirement a couple of months before the party, and everyone, including the staff and the whole family, knew about it. As the person who had been the right hand of my father in the restaurant for the last 5 years, I naturally expected that the management would go to me after his departure. We never discussed this directly, and I really regret that. I just took it for granted, and maybe that was my mistake. Although in several conversations, my father mentioned that after his departure, he would like me to take care of certain things, and I took this as a sign. If he is talking about my future responsibilities, then he clearly intends to leave the business to me. It never occurred to me that he could do otherwise. I trusted my father, he never gave me any reason to think otherwise. Yes, he always treated Derek in a special way, but that doesn't mean he treated me badly. He always loved and respected me both as a daughter and as an employee. So, when he announced his decision to retire a couple of months before the party, I organized a farewell party for him without even thinking that he hadn't yet announced the name of his successor. For me, it was obvious. And then the day of the party comes, and he says that he is handing over the management to Derek. I was in shock, and not only me, all the attendees were completely bewildered, from the staff to our mother. No one expected this. Everyone was sure that it would be me. I had been working in that restaurant for 5 years, perfecting everything, and after 5 years of hard work, the business goes to Derek. It just doesn't make sense in my head. I didn't fully realize it until the moment my father called Derek to him, and he accepted his appointment with a smug smirk. At that moment, I just couldn't take it anymore and ran out of the restaurant in tears. The pain was unbearable. After a few minutes, my father came out to me to explain. I was furious, but I decided to listen to him anyway. And honestly, his reasons were as stupid as the decision itself. He said that he understands that Derek is a hopeless slacker. For 2 years, he had been doing nothing, and my father tried to make him find a job, but he just didn't do anything. So, he thought that if he put him in a situation where he would have to take on responsibility, for example, managing the restaurant, it would make him change. My father hoped that now that it was his own business, he would treat it differently, work better and more seriously. Or at least he would stop sitting at home doing nothing. But the most humiliating part is that he asked me to stay at the restaurant and essentially continue doing what I was doing for him, but now for Derek. In essence, he wanted me to be the real manager while Derek was just a nominal head. It was a slap in the face. I was being offered to become a nanny for a person who had no idea how to run a business, while I had long since proven my competence. I told my father that he had 2 options, either he would cancel his decision and give the restaurant to me, or he would lose me forever. We had a serious argument. He accused me of being selfish and not thinking about my brother's future. I replied that he was not thinking about my future. As a result, I simply cut off all ties with him. He refused to change his mind, and I was not going to work for Derek. After that, I never went back to the restaurant. That was my last day there. A month has passed, and I still haven't crossed the threshold of that place. I continue to communicate with my mother and Charles, but we never discuss the restaurant. They know how things are going there, but they understand that for me, it's a painful topic and they don't bring it up. Until recently, I didn't even know what was happening at the restaurant after that argument. I stopped talking to my father, and I wasn't talking to Derek anyway, so in that respect, nothing changed. I started applying for other jobs after leaving the restaurant. I had savings, and I decided that until I found something suitable, I would live on them. I was even planning to go on a trip next week, but now I'm not sure if that will happen because I might have to return to the restaurant. As I predicted, my brother screwed up big time. He had no idea how to run a restaurant, but for some reason, my father decided that the best strategy was to give him complete freedom of action so that he would feel trusted and confident. Obviously, Derek's feelings were more important than the family business and common sense. Since he started managing the restaurant, he made a lot of irresponsible and foolish financial decisions. But the real disaster happened when he decided to cut costs on ingredients. Now, because of this, he has huge problems. Our restaurant also serves vegans. We have a separate vegan menu, and we strictly ensure that the products do not come into contact with non-vegan products for ethical reasons. We even have a separate area on the kitchen for such dishes, but Derek decided to remove this area to free up space in the kitchen, and then he started replacing vegan products to reduce expenses. It was only a matter of time before one of the guests would expose him, and a couple of days ago, that happened. Derek ordered the kitchen staff to use regular cow's milk instead of the more expensive soy milk whenever possible. This is incredibly dangerous. This idiot forgot that some people adhere to veganism for a reason, and they may have an allergy to dairy products. I think you can already guess what happened. A customer ordered a dessert with milk and specifically asked to replace the milk with soy or another alternative. If the dish had been prepared by one of the old employees, they would have ignored Derek's instructions and done as the customer asked. But unfortunately, Derek hired a new, inexperienced worker and strictly ordered him to make sure that no one violated his orders. Apparently, Derek is not so stupid as to realize that employees might sabotage his orders. Since the supplies of alternative milk were running out quickly, he wanted to have a snitch for himself, so he hired this new guy. This snitch ignored the customer's request and used regular milk. As a result, the customer had a severe allergic reaction, and now he is threatening to sue the restaurant. I found out about all this from my father. He called me the evening of the day of the incident and told me everything. It was obvious that he was in a panic. He said that he had fired Derek as soon as he found out what he had been doing behind his back, and now he wants me to come back and take the very position I originally wanted. It was simply absurd. Now that my brother had ruined everything, my father suddenly changed his mind. What I had predicted had happened, and now he was asking me to come back. I was still angry and hurt after everything that had happened a month ago, so when I heard this, I just laughed. Then I told my father that there was no way I was coming back. And if he really wanted me to come back, then he had to publicly apologize to me, in front of all the staff and the family, just as he publicly humiliated me at the party. He needed to acknowledge his mistake, announce Derek's dismissal, and officially appoint me to the position. I don't think I'm asking for something unimaginable. What he did back then was simply unacceptable, and I have every right to demand that my father rectify the situation. Now, my father needs me, and he should prove that he has realized his mistake. However, my mother thinks I'm going too far, and even my father himself told me during the call that he would never do that. He stated that the restaurant belongs to me just as much as it does to him, and while he may have made a mistake, my demand for a public apology is over the top and humiliating. Well, he wants me to come back after choosing Derek over me? Then he should publicly ask me to do so. Update 1 *. Hello everyone. First of all, I want to thank everyone who left comments under my previous post, gave advice, and supported me. It really means a lot to know that you care about my situation. Thank you so much. Now, about what I decided, I took a few days to think and made a decision. I am returning to the business. It wasn't easy because I had to swallow my pride, but in the end, I had given 5 years of my life to this venture, and no matter what happens, I can't change the fact that I want to lead this business. I don't want it to simply fall apart because I understand perfectly well that my father won't live forever. As I already mentioned, Charles is not interested in the restaurant, and Derek is obviously incapable of anything, let alone managing a business. So, it leaves only me. There are simply no other options. I also spoke with my uncle and cousin who manage the other 2 restaurants, and they also think I need to come back. They are convinced that this restaurant rightfully belongs to me, and if my father himself is asking me to come back, then I should leave past grievances behind and take control of the situation. I love this restaurant and don't want to see it fall apart. It's that simple. Honestly, I would have liked my father to apologize to me publicly, but I don't want to turn this into a spectacle and gloat, proving that I was right about Derek. It wouldn't bring me any pleasure compared to the joy that the success of our restaurant will bring. This time, I decided to let go of the situation. It's in my best interest. Today, I spoke with my father. It was an extremely formal and calm conversation. We decided to leave our disagreements in the past and discuss them later because right now, our main task is to resolve the current crisis. We agreed to meet with our lawyers and the client who was harmed by Derek's actions. We need to come to an out-of-court settlement because she is actively writing about us on social media. So far, we are lucky that her posts haven't gained much popularity, but that could change at any moment. We need to contain this scandal before it escalates into something more serious. Update 2 *. Yesterday, I met with my father in person for the first time in a long time. We met before the negotiations with the client and discussed all the details with our lawyer. It was strange to see him after so many weeks apart, because before that, I had seen him literally every day for 5 years. I didn't even realize how much I missed him until I saw him again. We hardly talked because most of the time, the lawyer was speaking, and we needed to listen carefully. But I felt that there was a lot left unsaid between us, although now was not the time to discuss it. My father still didn't apologize for what happened a month ago and didn't bring up the topic, but the atmosphere between us was polite and even slightly warm. It was our first meeting after that big argument, and I expected it to be awkward, but fortunately, it wasn't. After the meeting, he invited me to his home to see my mom, because since that unfortunate evening, I hadn't seen her either. But I refused because I already had plans. I was invited to a friend's engagement party. By the way, I asked my father if Derek was still living with them. It turned out that he wasn't. I was curious about what exactly had happened and where he had gone, but my father clearly didn't want to discuss it, so I didn't press the issue. Later, I asked Charles if he knew anything, and he said that Derek had moved out a few days after being fired, but it was unclear whether it was his own decision or if the parents had kicked him out. So, for now, this question remains open, but I will definitely find out from my father what really happened. As for the meeting with the client, it went quite well. I expected it to be more difficult because the situation is really serious and involves multiple ethical violations. Such a thing would never have happened if the restaurant had been run by my father or me. However, the client turned out to be reasonable. She explained that the only reason she had threatened to sue and complained so actively on social media was not the incident itself, but how the manager had treated her. Instead of admitting the mistake, he had accused her of not warning about her allergy and not specifying that she wanted soy milk. That was what had infuriated her. We only fully realized what an idiot Derek was when we learned all the details. Until then, the client had refused to discuss the matter without her lawyer. In her social media posts, she had hinted at how she was treated but hadn't gone into details because she was afraid of a defamation lawsuit. After all, it was just her word against Derek's, and he had even tried to intimidate her, writing that she should delete her posts because she was allegedly lying and threatening to sue. Therefore, she couldn't reveal all the details. My father and I couldn't get the full picture because the waiter who took the order was afraid of losing his job and supported Derek's version. I don't blame him. People cling to their jobs and sometimes have to cover for their bosses. The new employee hired by Derek, of course, naturally sided with him. He insisted that the waiter hadn't mentioned anything about soy milk, implying that the customer was at fault, allegedly trying to capitalize on the scandal. In the end, we explained to the client that the person responsible had already been fired and that the management was now in different hands. We assured her that such a thing would not happen again. Thankfully, we managed to agree on an out-of-court settlement. She promised to delete her posts and close the matter. We lost a significant amount of money, but at least the problem created by Derek has been resolved. Now, my father and I can breathe a little easier. Update 3 asterisk. A month has passed since I returned to the restaurant, and honestly, I have never been happier. It took me some time to realize how unhappy I was without work. Yes, I had disagreements with my father, but this restaurant is my life, and I want to develop it further, and I will do it. As for my father, we are trying to mend our relationship, and we have already made significant progress. I have started communicating closely with my parents again, and we decided that as a family, we should spend much more time together. A couple of weeks ago, I had a heart-to-heart talk with my father, and he admitted that he and my mother deeply regret how they treated me and Charles. They always knew that Derek was the weak link in our family and were just trying to bring him up to our level so that he wouldn't feel worse, but in the end, they only inflated his ego to the point where he imagined himself to be someone great without even trying to achieve anything real. Therefore, his dismissal was a blow to his ego, and he decided to move out. Since then, he hasn't communicated with anyone in the family, but my father, through acquaintances, found out that Derek is living with a friend and working at a local video game store. At least he's doing something, and that's already good. Every week, our family gets together for dinner, including Charlie and his wife. Derek has been invited a few times because it would be rude not to invite him, but he doesn't respond. It's his choice, and I'm not too worried about it. I wish him luck, but I don't want to have anything to do with him. Spending time with family has done me good, and I am finally mending my relationship with my father. I like this. Lately, life has really improved, and I have nothing to complain about. I am doing what I love again and building what I believe in. I don't think I could ask for more. And most importantly, I am back in good standing with my family. It seems that's all I need for happiness. So, this is the end of the story. Be sure to write in the comments what you think about it. It's unclear what the father was even thinking, honestly, because the son had no work experience in anything, as far as I understand, let alone in the restaurant business where you need to know something. And, accordingly, how could he not screw up the processes? I don't understand. And I still think the authoress was wrong to ask her father to publicly apologize to her in front of all the employees and the family. Why? Well, because he really did kind of humiliate her, right? I agree. But a personal apology face-to-face would have been enough, I think. Just publicly, after all, the father is a respected person, probably among the employees and in the family. Therefore, I think he would hardly have agreed to that, and why condemn him to some kind of outright humiliation, right? To admit his mistake that he screwed up with this son, with his decision. Well, okay, but that the new manager's reputation suffered, that's not such a big deal, right? The father is already on his way out, so to speak. Well, okay, the new blood suffered. Well, maybe she did suffer, but everyone would have understood anyway, I think. I believe the father appointed her as the new manager again because he accepted his mistake, acknowledged it. Therefore, asking him to humiliate himself publicly, I think it was clear that he wouldn't agree to that. Such people who have been running a business all their lives are usually very proud, I think. Well, maybe, but again, maybe it would have been some kind of insurance against future such, what did you say? Overhauls? Yes, overhauls, when he decides again that he needs to appoint his son again. Then that would have been insurance. Well, I think that if he apologized to her in person, especially since she herself was eager to return, that would have been enough. I think it's more of a family matter than anything else. Well, maybe in principle, we don't know if he did it or not. Apparently, he didn't. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Watch our previous video that you will see here, and good luck to you.